So today we're talking about a really important topic in your downswing, which at first may sound like it contradicts everything you've heard about what you should do as you make your downswing. So today we're focusing on the downswing and the downswing with all the golf clubs in your bag, because this will apply to your irons, your forwards and your driver. And like I said there in the introduction, this might be the opposite to what you've been hearing for the last few years on YouTube, on social media and on just general golf coaching. But hopefully as we explain this, it will all become clear and ultimately it's going to help you work on your golf swing, make some better moves in your golf swing and have a little bit more control over the golf ball, because that's essentially what we're trying to do. So the topic we're talking about is the topic of shallowing the golf club or steepening the golf club in the golf swing, or in the downswing I should say. Now what you'll probably have heard as pretty common coaching is that the poorer players will tend to steepen the club shaft and the better players will tend to shallow the club shaft. And what I'm going to tell you in this video is that steepening the club shaft is at some point far more beneficial to you as the golfer. Let's explain what we mean. If I took a setup to a golf ball and initially I'm going to use my wrist set to get the club up to this point here. Now, whilst the club head raises up, the club face will still pretty much point at my target. It doesn't point right or left. Now, when I move my forearms and I rotate them to the right, this would be more of a shallowing movement. The golf club now point way off to the right-hand side, excessively off to the right-hand side, almost kind of straight in front of me, so way open. If I move back to this neutral position and I go and rotate my forearms to the left, this would be a steepening motion. And the golf club now points excessively closed and pretty much directly behind me. So as we rotate the arms to the right, that opens the golf club, and as we rotate the arms to the left, that closes the golf club. So what happens in transition is that as we start to move the golf club towards a shallower position, that is effectively opening the club face relative to your target. As you move towards a steeper position, that is effectively closing the face. Now, it's really hard to see that because the club's kind of up somewhere here in space. We don't necessarily have a target line that we can reference. So when we move towards a shallower and a steeper position, we don't really see that through the club face. It's hard to kind of establish where that club face is in space. So what you've been told potentially is that the best golfers in the world from the top of their golf swing will shallow the golf club, and this is absolutely true. What is often not explained is that when they have made that shallowing move, and I'm going to do this quite extreme, this way, what they will then start to do is they will then start to steepen the club shaft. And you can see as I'm doing this now, I'm starting to steepen the club shaft. However, because I shallowed it early in transition, as I steepen it, it never becomes too steep, if that makes sense. So let's do that excessively. This is excessively shallow. And then as I steepen it, it's now steepening, but you can see how that point there, it's not excessively steep. So why is this important? Well, if in that backswing, we have some amounts of forearm rotation away from the target, which we do, that tends to open the club face. That's fine, that happens in every golf swing. But we know that we want the golf club to point pretty much back at our target as we arrive at impact. So what's unfortunately going to be difficult is if from the top you focus very much on shallowing the golf club, 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 you're going to be in a position arriving at impact where there's a very good chance that you're going to be swinging the golf club out to the right of the target, which is for many what you'd love to have happen. But the club face is excessively open. And what's going to happen from here is you're going to start to hit big high pushes to the right, or if you don't want to hit that shot, you're going to start to really flip that club face through impact, and you might get some really nice draw shots, but you've got no chance of timing that consistently shot after shot after shot, round after round after round, unless you're a full-time golfer, you're able to practice 5 to 6 times a week, play 3 or 4 times a week, and your timing and your skill might start to help you do that, but incredibly difficult for most of us who don't have that time. So what we'd actually love you to do is from the top, we'd love you to make this shallowing motion, because the shallowing motion gives us room where we can begin to steepen the club shaft. As soon as we start to steepen that club shaft, we're starting to get that club face which was open, and we're starting to turn it down to face back at the ball and ultimately back at the target. Your timing does not have to be as relied upon as much if we can do it this way. So here's a great little way for you to feel that. You're going to take your address and you're going to split your grip. You're going to take your trail hand down onto the bottom of the handle and onto the club shaft. And from there, you're going to make a little backswing up to the top, and you're going to feel as if as you start down, you shallow that golf club. But as you approach this last parallel position in the downswing, I want you to really feel now that you're tipping the club head more out in front of you. Notice how I'm steepening that club shaft and tipping the club out in front of me. The way I'm doing that is by moving my left hand or my lead hand closer to me and my trail hand out in front of me. So we're making this shallowing move here, and then we start to get this club moving out in front of me. And watch what's happening to that club face as I do that. It starts to point more down towards the ground. And I get the club head a little bit more in front of me here, and it allows me to create a very neutral path, which is really, really helpful for straight shots. And it helps me control the club face and start to get it under control much, much earlier in the golf swing. I'm now in a position where I can rotate through and hit some pretty straight shots without the need for me having to try and flip it, time it, and rely on my skill. So what would that look like in a golf swing? Well, let me show you. I'm going to do this over a very short distance. We go up to the top, we shallow the golf club, we work it down, and at some point we begin to try and steepen it, and we tip the club head back in front, and then we go through and we clip it. And that one went a little bit left. Not too worried about that really. It's more a case of trying to get this sensation of, can I get the club tipping out in the downswing? The best golfers, the ones out there who, you know, play the best golf, who hit the most solid shots, who have the most consistency, and you can think of that as the, you know, the world tours or just the golfers at your club, are most likely going to be sending the golf club outward in the latter part of the downswing. The last thing that we want you to do is be so focused on shallowing the golf club that it gets so far behind you that the path is going way right, the face is way open, and from here you're really open to blocks, overdraws, hooks, snap hooks, duck hooks, all of those shots which we say are better player shots, but really don't help you with your scores. So, shallowing the golf club, yes, it's important, but really the only reason we'd like you to shallow the golf club is because it allows you to steepen the club shaft, and that is actually far more important. So, coaching over the last 2 or 3 years has told you, has drummed home to you that you need to shallow the club shaft. I'm telling you in this video that if you want to hit the ball better, you need to steepen the club shaft in the latter part of your downswing. But in order to do that, the early part of your downswing, the transition, you do absolutely need to shallow it. But the two together have to happen for you to play your best golf. So shallowing is good, but at some point you better steepen it, otherwise you're going to be relying on your timing and your skill to hit the shots where you want to. Hopefully that made sense. Hopefully it's a little bit of an eye-opener for you, something that potentially you've not heard before. Love to hear your comments down below. Is this something you feel is helpful? Do you like this type of content? And also hit that like button if you did like the video. That really does help me. And why not subscribe if you're not already? It is absolutely free, and there's more content just like this coming each and every week. Thanks for watching.